Live on Custom Stream. Okay, Hare Krishna. Good morning. Start by singing Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Hava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavala Hava Giri Varadari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Janavala Hava Giri Varadari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Valahava Giri Varadari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayam Vishnu Padram Hamsa Parvakacharya Ashtotavasada Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Guranga. We're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, text number 4. And the title of the chapter is the description of the adverse fruitive activities. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, text number 4. Janto vai bhava estasmin yam yam yonim anurvajet tasyam salabhate nivritim na virajyate. Janto vai bhava etasmin yam yam yonim anurvajet tasyam salabhate nivritim na virajyate. Jantahu, the living entity. Vai, certainly. Have, in worldly existence. Etasmin, this. Yam, whatever. Yernim, species. Anu, frajet. He may obtain. Tasyam, in that. Saha, he. Labhate, achieves. Nivritim, satisfaction. Na, not. Virajate is adverse. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The living entity, in whatever species of life he appears, finds a particular type of satisfaction in that species, and he is never adverse to being situated in such a condition. Purport. The satisfaction of the living entity in a particular type of body, even if it is most abominable, is called illusion. A man in a higher position may feel dissatisfaction with the standard of life of a lower grade man. But the lower grade man is satisfied in that position because of the spell of Maya, the external energy. Maya has two phases of activities. One is called Prakshipatmika, and the other is called Avanaratmika. Avanaratmika means covering, and Prakshipatmika means pulling down. In any condition of life, the materialistic person or animal will be satisfied because his knowledge is covered by the influence of Maya. In the lower grade or species of life, the development of consciousness is so poor that one cannot understand whether he is happy or distressed. This is called Avaranatmika. Even a hog who lives by eating stool finds himself happy, although a person in a higher mode of life sees that the hog is eating stool. How abominable that life is. Let's read the purport again. So the translation again. The living entity, in whatever species of life he appears, finds a particular type of satisfaction in that species, and he is never adverse to being in such a condition. Namagyana Timirandasya Gyananjanan Chalakaya Chakshu Ummilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born into the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master has kindly opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the torchlight of knowledge. Therefore, my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavane Pacharine Nivishesha Sunyavadi Pastyatide Shatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Prabhupada today in his purport is talking about the covering of Maya, which keeps us in illusion. And he distinguishes two types of Maya. So today we're going to talk about those two types of Maya and also about the process of surrendering to Krishna. I'm just trying to find some notes. So Prabhupada's pointing out that whatever species of life one happens to be in, one feels happy and satisfied within that condition because Maya covers the living entity and covers his true identity. So if we were in the body of a hog, but I knew that actually I was a spiritual being meant for more than this, that I'm actually meant for being free, I'm meant for serving Krishna, then I wouldn't be satisfied in that condition as a hog. But Prabhupada's pointing out that the hog, however abominable his situation, he's feeding on stool and anything else that he can find and living in mud, but he feels himself to be happy and satisfied in that condition. So this type of Maya is called Avaranatmika Shakti. So there's two Shaktis. There's Avaranatmika Shakti and there's the Prakshipatmika Shakti. And each one has a different function. So let's look at the first one, Avaranatmika Shakti first, and try and have a deeper understanding of that one. So Maya keeps us in a perpetual cycle of birth and death, and an endless attempt to try and fulfill our desires for temporary enjoyments. And this is actually Maya's duty. Prabhupada points out that it's a thankless task that Maya is performing. And one thing we have to understand is that Maya is more powerful than us. Maya is referred to as the external energy, or the inferior energy, the material energy, whereas we, the living entities, are referred to as the marginal energy, and Krishna's energy is the superior energy. So even though Maya is referred to as an inferior energy, she's being conducted by Krishna, and therefore she is more powerful than us, and we can never overcome Maya's influence on our own. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a nice verse 7:14. Daivihi esa gunamayi mamam maya durachaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam mitam tarantite. Krishna says, this divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is very difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada points out that although Maya is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshvara, the supreme controller. And Prabhupada further explains that nobody else can save us from Maya, from this material illusion. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the demigods cannot save us. Krishna alone can release us from the bondage. Another meaning Prabhupada points out, the meaning of guna or rope, keeps us tightly bound by this illusion. If we're bound by the hands and feet by a rope, one cannot free oneself. And therefore, because we cannot free ourselves, we need the help of one who is liberated. So Krishna, or his representative, only can release us from this bondage of Maya. Srila Prabhupada tells a nice story, or an interesting story, of a prostitute, Lakshahira. In this story, Prabhupada tells, there's one man who's developed leprosy. And in that abominable condition, he's still not satisfied. And his wife says to him, my dear husband, how can I make you satisfied? What do you need? And the man in his abominable condition says, I need to see the prostitute, Lakshahira. I want to go and see her. To just see in such a condition of life, still he's desiring unwantable things. So his wife, being a good wife, wanting to satisfy her husband, allows him to go and see the prostitute. And when he gets there, the prostitute Lakshahira, she feeds him, but she feeds him in two bowls. One is made of brass or iron, and the other one's made of gold. And the man has to eat out of both of those bowls. And then eventually he asks her, why are you making me eat out of two bowls? One of iron and one of gold. And she asks him, does the food taste different in the iron bowl than it does in the gold bowl? And the man says, no, the food tastes the same. And she said, so why are you here? Why have you come to me? So the point Prabhupada was making is that we may take, the bowls represent different species of life, different situations in life. And in those different situations of life, the taste, the enjoyment's actually the same. The animal propensities of life that one is seeking in the animal species is the same as what we're seeking in the human form of life. It's dressed differently. The bowl looks different, the body looks different. But actually, the enjoyment, although it may have higher and lower grades of tastes, is pretty much the same thing. And it also leads ultimately to increased suffering and bondage within the material world. So it's an interesting story. So, Avaranatmika Shakti. This is a quote from Prabhupada. Just like the cloud covers the sun, we cannot see. Now a few days it's going on, there is cloud always. We do not see the sun. That does not mean there is no sun. So Maya does not allow us to see Krishna. That is one Shakti, Avaranatmika Shakti. Avaranatmika is also defined as ignorance. Living in a condemned situation of life, but still thinking, oh, I'm so happy. So I was thinking along these lines of the story of Gajendra the elephant. Gajendra the elephant, he was, in his previous life, he was Indradumna, King Indradumna Maharaj. And King Indradumna, he renounced his kingdom, he renounced his family life, and he went to the forest to worship and meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. While he was in the forest meditating, he had taken a vow of silence. And at that time, Agastya Muni came along and wanted to be fed or to drink water. But King Indradumna did not stand or did not recognize him because he was deep in his meditation. So Agastya Muni, becoming angry, decided to curse King Indradumna and cursed him to become an elephant in his next life. So in his next life, King Indradumna became Gajendra, the king of the elephants. So we know in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Neha Vikrama Nashosti Prativayana Vichite Svapamapyasya Dhammasya Trayate Mahato Bayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. So King Indradumna in his previous life had cultivated devotional service. So he didn't take birth as an elephant on planet Earth. He took birth as an elephant in the heavenly planets, on a great mountain in the Milk Ocean. And on that mountain, there was beautiful lakes and beautiful parks and beautiful forests and many living entities. And the demigods would come there to sport and play. It was a place of great beauty and great enjoyment. And Gajendra, as the king of the elephants, he wasn't thinking, why have I taken birth as an elephant? What an abominable condition of life. No, he was happy. He was thinking, now I'm the king of the elephants. And just see, when I walk through the forest, all the living entities, the tigers, and all the dangerous living entities, they run away in fear from me. And see how I'm giving so much shelter to my family, to all the female elephants and to my children. See how I'm giving shelter to all the young, all the fearful birds and animals, because I chase away the tigers, they come and they feel safe. And he was walking along through the forest like this, intoxicated with the liquor of the plants, but also intoxicated with his own pride and his own joy in his situation. So this is Avaranatmika Shakti, that one may be in a condition of life where we're completely satisfied. I have everything I need. You see somebody in the mode of ignorance. He may have very simple life, very small things, but he's satisfied with what he has. And if he's suffering, if one is suffering and in a difficult situation, then we're thinking, but it won't last very long. We know that happiness and distress comes and goes. So if I just keep going and I keep trying, then I'll get over this difficult time. And that's what happened to Gajendra. He went into the lake with his female companions. And as he entered the lake, he was drinking the water from the lake, which was sweet and full of the pollen from the lotus flowers. And he was spraying the water on his wives and on his children. But suddenly, in that moment of joy, crunch, the crocodile bit his leg. And that crocodile is compared to Maya. And when she bites, she doesn't want to let go. So Gajendra, he fought the crocodile in the water. It says in the Bhagavatam for 1,000 years. Now, I'm not sure if that 1,000 years is 1,000 years of the celestial planets or 1,000 years of Earth. But it says 1,000 years, which is a very, very long time. So sometimes, as devotees, we may be thinking, when will Maya just let go of me? When will she give me freedom? But the fact is, Maya is eternal. Just like we're eternal, she is also eternal. And therefore, the reality is she never lets go. Gajendra was fighting against the crocodile, but he wasn't in his element. he was in the water, and the crocodile was in his element. Similarly, in the material world, we're not in our element, and therefore Maya will be trying to pull us down. So the other type of Maya, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, today's purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Prakshipatmika means pulling down. So this other type of Maya, no matter how, when the living entity tries to turn his face towards Krishna, when he tries to make progress in his spiritual life, still Maya will pull him down. Just like the crocodile was trying to pull Gajendra under the water. Prabhupada says, when a devotee comes to Krishna consciousness, Maya will try to trick him, to test. Does he really want Krishna? Or is he just keeping some material pleasure and putting Krishna to help him achieve that material pleasure? In this way, Maya Shakti is acting. If one tries to get out, suppose someone is coming to Krishna consciousness, Maya will dictate, why are you coming here to the temple? There are so many restrictions, so many rules and regulations. Better give it up. Why engage in this nonsense? And it's not that one's been practicing devotional service for 20 years or 30 years that Maya gives up. The tests may become harder because Maya has to do her service and see, is this devotee serious? Does this devotee really want Krishna? So Gajendra, he was fighting the elephant. And finally, after 1,000 years, he came to his senses. He remembered, by the grace of Krishna, he remembered from his previous life as King Indradumna. He remembered some prayers. But at that point of surrender, he realized, my friends and my relatives, they cannot help me. Because what was happening was, in the story, Gajendra's friends and relatives, they were trying to pull him out of the crocodile's grip. They were holding him by the tail and by the legs, and they were pulling and pulling. But as hard as they pulled, they could not help. And the demigods, they were standing by watching. They didn't come to his rescue either. And the reason they didn't come to his rescue is that Gajendra didn't ask for them. Now, he's realizing that his friends and relatives can't help him. So for a human being, for a devotee in this world who comes to that point of complete surrender, he's realizing, my friends and relatives can't help me. My life insurance can't help me. The doctors and nurses can't help me. The governments can't help me. My house insurance can't help me. My car insurance can't help me. Nothing can help me. There's nothing left. All of these things I've put around me to support me in this life, suddenly nothing is there. Nothing is left. So what am I going to do? I can turn to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the resort or the perfect place of shelter for everyone. So Gajendra, he says these very nice prayers. Gajendra prayed. I'm going to read Gajendra's prayers because they're very nice prayers. And at the end of the story, Krishna says, those who rise early in the morning and offer me the same prayers that you recited, Gajendra, I will give an eternal residence in the spiritual world at the end of their lives. So let's listen to these wonderful prayers of Gajendra. Gajendra prayed, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Person, who is the root cause of all existence. The Supreme Lord is the ultimate platform upon which everything rests. He is the ingredient by which everything has become manifested, and yet he is self-sufficient in all regards. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead give me protection, for I am taking shelter at his lotus feet. An artist on stage being dressed in various costumes and dancing with intricate motions cannot be understood by the audience. Similarly, the activities and features of the Supreme Artist cannot be understood even by the great sages and demigods. My Lord, you are the actual observer of the objectives of sensual activities. And without your direction, the living entity cannot take even one step forwards. Unless you give him directions, he cannot make progress. Because an animal such as I have surrendered unto you, certainly you will release me from this dangerous position. So Gajendra, when he's surrendering unto the Lord, he is in absolute confidence that the Lord is going to release him from his dangerous position. He says, I'm going to read it again. Because I've surrendered unto you, certainly you will release me from this dangerous position, being extremely merciful as the Paramatma within my heart. So just think about this for a second. Krishna is the Paramatma within the heart. And whatever species of life, however many lifetimes we are blinded by ignorance and covered by Maya, Krishna is still there with us. However many lifetimes we've turned our back on him, blasphemed him, and denied him, but still, he's there waiting for us to turn to him. How many friends do we have or do we know in the material world that if we were to ignore them, blaspheme them, deny them for lifetime after lifetime, would still be there as soon as you call them? Would come flying on Garuda to rescue you from the crocodile of Maya. And then Gajendra says another interesting thing. He says, I know that pure devotees never ask for such benedictions. So he's acknowledging that I'm not a pure devotee. Because pure devotees, they're satisfied simply by hearing and chanting your names. They're not interested in liberation. They're not interested in anything but pleasing you. And then Gajendra says, but I am in danger. And so I'm praying to you to deliver me. I'm requesting you to save me from this condition. So Gajendra, he is taking complete shelter of the Supreme Lord. I'm praying, please save me. And he's doing so with confidence. Also, it's interesting that Gajendra did not surrender to the demigods who were present watching the whole thing. And actually the demigods, it said in the Bhagavatam, they actually became a little bit offended by Gajendra, not requesting their help. And later when the Supreme Lord came, they realized that their own pride was also an offense. And so they also prayed to the Lord to forgive them for their own offenses. So Gajendra, when the Supreme Lord did come on Gajendra with his trunk, although he was in so much pain and he was suffering, he picked up a lotus flower from the lake and he held it up in his trunk. And he offered it to the Lord. He offered his humble obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So surrender in the way that Gajendra did. It was a feeling of complete helplessness. He was in a situation of nothing else is going to save me from the grip of this crocodile. Now I have nothing else except the Supreme Personality of Godhead to rescue me. And therefore I'm offering everything I have to him. The only thing I can find is this flower, but I'm offering my very self. So Maya, her job is to get us to that point of complete surrender, where I realize that I have nothing else left except for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the teeth of the crocodile, those teeth, each one of those teeth can represent one of our anartas or desires that keeps us bound in this material world. All those things that we aim to enjoy, the happinesses and the distress, those are the teeth that Maya uses to bind us to this material world. And she grips on tight, and when Krishna came on Garuda, he immediately took his Sudarshan chakra and he chopped off the teeth chopped off the mouth from the body of the crocodile and immediately released the grip on Gajendra's leg. So he felt great relief. And at that point, Gajendra, he could have said, "Thank you, Krishna, you've saved me from the crocodile." So what am I going to do? I'm going to go back into the forest and enjoy here as an elephant for many more years with my family here on this beautiful mountain. And thanks for saving me. That's awesome. But he didn't do that. And if he did do that, Krishna would have said, "Okay, if that's what you want, that's fine. I'm going back to my spiritual world and you enjoy yourself as an elephant. And maybe we'll meet again in the future." So Krishna is impartial. But actually what Gajendra did is he said, "Actually, I do not wish to continue living, even after being released from this crocodile's attack. What is the use of an elephant's body, which is externally and internally full of ignorance? I simply desire liberation from this covering of ignorance. And thus I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, who is eternally situated in the transcendental position." So that's a nice story in the Bhagavatam, which illustrates the mood of surrender and the Supreme Lord saving his devotee from the clutches of Maya. One may ask, how do we practically fight Maya? Because as devotees, well, how do I, fight may be the wrong word, because actually we need to respect Maya. We need to respect the duty that she's performing in our lives. But still, every day is a fight. Maya is trying to pull us down, and we're trying to rise ourselves up. We're trying to hold on to the lotus feet of our spiritual master, who can pull us out of this Maya, out of this illusion. And we're holding on tight, but still, devotees will experience that the attacks keep coming. And devotees will try to strengthen themselves against those attacks. So through the process of chanting, through the process of reading, through associating with other devotees, through hearing, through sadhana, through practicing the four regulated principles of freedom, a devotee will strengthen oneself so that even though Maya is trying to pull us down, we are still able to keep moving forwards. Recently, I read a nice quote from Srila Prabhupada in Burijan's book. Burijan's book is called My Glorious Master. And in that book, he quotes Srila Prabhupada as having said the following. So Srila Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada said this in a meeting, and Burijan said he had heard Prabhupada say this more than once. If something is auspicious, do it immediately. If something is inauspicious, put it off. So I'll say that again. If something is auspicious, do it immediately. If something is inauspicious, put it off. So if something is auspicious, i.e. chanting, serving, all of the things we do in our devotional life, which is positively auspicious for getting us out of this situation, then we should do it immediately. So we know devotees, first thing in the morning, as soon as you wake up, the first thing we think about is, okay, I get to chant my rounds today. You could wake up and think, oh, God, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to get up and chant my rounds. But now we wake up and we smile and the first thing, oh yes, I get to chant my rounds. What a wonderful opportunity I have today. So the devotee gets up and the first thing we do is engage in positive devotional service immediately. Clean the body so that we're nice and clean the mind, clean the heart, engage in devotional service. So in this way, the day starts with an auspicious start. But if something's inauspicious, that one should delay it for as long as possible. So those inauspicious things, maybe those unwanted desires in the heart, the lust, the envy, the anger, the greed, those things that come and attack us when we're trying to progress in our spiritual life. And Prabhupada says we should delay them for as long as possible. When I read that quote, I was thinking of the pastime of Haridas Thakur, how he delayed the prostitute for long enough that she became purified. So we know the story of Haridas Thakur. He was living in a hut in the forest, a very simple hut that he had constructed. And outside of his hut, he had a tulsi plant. And every day the villagers would provide Haridas with everything that he needed. They would worship him because they realized how great this soul is. And the ruler, the Muslim ruler, he became envious of Haridas Thakur. And he did not like that Haridas Thakur was being worshipped, especially because he was following what they perceived as being the Hindu Dharma, not the Muslim Dharma. So he decided to send a prostitute to try and lure Haridas Thakur out of his saintliness. And this prostitute, when she first went to see Haridas Thakur, she came and she offered her obeisances to the tulsi plant as she entered his hermitage. Then she sat down at the doorway, revealing part of her body to Haridas Thakur, and she spoke sweet words to Haridas Thakur, telling him how handsome he was and how much she wanted to enjoy with him. So Haridas Thakur's reply was, just wait, just wait. I have all my rounds to finish. I've taken a vow. When I finish my rounds, then surely I will satisfy you. And this went on for 3 or 4 nights until eventually the prostitute, in the morning, she said, now I'm satisfied because I've realized just by your association, just by hearing your chanting, that what I've done is abominable. And all I want to do is surrender unto you. So Haridas Thakur, he immediately accepts her as his disciple and engages her in Krishna's service. So in the same way, when Maya is attacking us, if we can just put it off for as long as possible and immediately engage in devotional service and strengthen our intelligence, strengthen our devotion, then those attacks from Maya, from our mind, the longer we can put it off, the more we can get the opportunity to transform that original desire or that original thought, whatever it was that was trying to drag us down. So that's just a little practical meditation, perhaps, that may help us in our spiritual life. Now, I'm not connected to the Facebook here, so I'm not sure if there are any questions or comments. So perhaps Arjuna, you could help me with that. And I will see if I can get connected to the Facebook. Arjuna, can you send me the live link on WhatsApp? Maybe I can get that. Yes. So I'll just wait to see if Arjuna comes back with any questions from anyone. Just to summarize what we've talked about today, we've talked about two types of Maya. And one is Maya's propensity to keep us in illusion of our true identity. And the other one is Maya's propensity to pull us down when we are trying to progress in our spiritual life. And Maya is actually Krishna's servant. She's doing a thankless task. A thankless task is to test us and to bring us to that point of complete surrender, like Gajendra, to that point where we realize there's nothing else in this material world that's going to save me except the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we ended with another little story based on a quote from Srila Prabhupada, and that was a quote where if something is auspicious, do it immediately. If something is inauspicious, delay it for as long as possible. Thank you very much for listening this morning. I wish you a very positive day. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All glories to all the devotees of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Yeah, I checked and there's no questions, so we'll end there. Hare
Okay.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thanks, Arjuna. Hare Krishna.